Alrighty, I just got back home, I just got seated, and I'm gonna give my thorough review of the new Superman film for 2025. This is the Superman film by James Gunn, written and directed by him. James Gunn is really no secret and surprise within the industry of movies. My first James Gunn film that I watched, it was directed by Zack Snyder, of course, but he wrote the film. It was the Dawn of the Dead remake, and I just remember having so much fun watching that movie, seeing the tension, seeing Dawn of the Dead remade with a new scenario and the survivors just going around blasting zombies and running out of the mall, and zombies that run this time around was kind of interesting to see on screen. That was like the fresh injection of James Gunn's writing so far, and I really liked it. I thought he maintained a tense atmosphere throughout the entirety of that movie, and it really showed. Then we move on to the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, taking this relatively unknown fleet of space people and criminals, all sort of shit, and just melding them into a family almost, and having them come together from either messed up backgrounds like Rocket Raccoon being experimented upon, and then you just see how James Gunn crafted those movies for Marvel and how they took the Guardians off to a massive success, and I really enjoyed those. And now we have, I also seen the Suicide Squad as well. I keep forgetting about that. I've seen that as well, and I know James Gunn is also not unfamiliar to DC with that Suicide Squad movie, and I thought that movie was more enjoyable than the first Suicide Squad that came out in 2016. And now we have them taking on a new ship after the DCEU, the DC Extended Universe, plummeted into the ground with Aquaman 2, and it didn't really pan out too well, and you had a lot of middling movies. It's a lot riding on Superman 2025. How will this movie take a new shape into a cinematic universe and begin its first steps into stardom? And I'm gonna go with some of the things that were presented in the movie in a non-spoiler way, and then when I get to a certain point, I'm going to spoil the film. Watch out when I count down and I say, okay, it's time for spoilers. 3, 2, 1, we're gonna start. But this is the non-spoiler section. All right. The characterization of Superman, that is the most important thing. How they embody him, his power sets, his character, him being Clark Kent, so all that stuff is going to be brought up at this point. And I thoroughly believe that David Cornsweet is his name. David Cornsweet played a fantastic Superman, from the mannerisms to the self-censors where he scolds Crypto a little bit and he says what the hey instead of what the fuck, right? It's just those little Boy Scout big blue quirks that you love about the character, coming in and being pioneered from either comics, All-Star Superman, being pioneered by some stuff from the Superman animated series that you'll probably see from there. And most critics that love Superman will say, hey, this felt like a Superman episode from the animated series just brought to life on screen as a big comic book affair, and you're gonna get plenty of that in this film. As for the Clark Kent side, I'm going to talk about him a little bit later and how they portrayed Clark Kent, but this is kind of some of the issue with the movie is due to the breakneck pacing. You don't get a lot of time to sit down with the man that is behind the identity of Superman. Clark is very sparse in this film, although I will say I do agree with the people and the issues they have with that, and maybe they could have fleshed out a little bit more of the human side to Clark Kent and bringing that out in very key and pivotal emotional scenes. However, I do think that the scenes that they used, while Clark is very sparingly used in this movie, was effective for what it was. But I can't talk about that until we get to the spoiler section. God damn it. All right. God damn it. I gotta keep my lips closed on that one. Superman himself, once again, big blue, all about hope, courage, positivity. You get that in spades. Like, the title is Superman. and Superman gets shown off in spades in this movie in terms of his personality, which I really fucking loved and appreciated. Corn Sweat, he's definitely better than Cavill. Okay, I didn't watch the old Christopher Reeves Superman, which I need to get back to and sort of do like a watch party, you know, reverse sort of retrospective. I finally seen Superman 2025. Now I'm gonna go and watch the Richard Donner movies. But to me personally, if we compare Corn Sweat to Cavill, there is no contest. It's just no contest. Cavill has the look, but the writing that he dealt with and the personality just wasn't as exuberant as this, and it really shows. He did a fantastic job, Corn Sweat, and I cannot wait to see how he interacts with other characters in the DC universe that they're setting up, like Batman or other people, the other Lanterns. I want to see that chemistry going forward. Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, I thought she was very good, actually. There's no problems with her whatsoever. I felt that her jokes were on cue. I've heard also some complaints of people saying, oh, she needs to be more of an investigative journalist because that's what she is throughout the film. She's a sharp, witty character throughout those moments, and honestly, for what they showed of her and her journalism and investigation and doing interrogations and certain things and just tackling situations, I thought that was handled really well, as well as her relationship with Clark Kent himself and how she's sort of getting into it and saying that this is something I'm not really used to with relationships, due to the context of the movie moving pretty fast. And it's not like too big of a spoiler here at all. Clark Kent and Superman, of course, they're in their relationship for like their second year or something, and it's sort of going back and forth, and you see it conflicts with the job a little bit with what she has to do in certain scenes of the movie. And I thought that dynamic was well done. You could tell that her and Corn Sweat, Rachel Brosnahan and David Corn Sweat, they have that undeniable chemistry. I remember seeing an interview where James Gunn talked about this, saying that chemistry between actors cannot be forced, it has to be organic, and this fits the role of being organic rather well. I thought they had a spark on screen that was fantastic. It kind of reminded me a bit of, like, you know, just having a character where you have two actors on screen and they just shine through the experience. When you think of great characters, I'm going to use a video game for example. I know it's like a video game, but I'm going to bring up the first Last of Us. The chemistry with Joel and Ellie, Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker was very fucking good. It made that duo click. It made everything fall into place, and I thought it felt similar here with Brosnahan and David Corn Sweat, where they both just clicked in, despite that having to be an excruciating process to make organic nature between two people and craft some sort of interpersonal relationship between them and make it work just fine, or make the chemistry work just fine, or make the characterization work just fine between two characters. I think that's a very hard thing to achieve and do, because if you mess that up, you basically fucked up the whole situation with Clark and Lois, and they are like the mainstays, like, put together. They're supposed to be two peas in a pod. And I like I said, I thought that was fucking great. Jimmy Olsen's in this movie. He seems to be I can't even go into too many details about him because I almost let it slip, but I will say his role was mostly just the comedy relief. Like, I gotta play this dance with you guys and not spoil the film. So he's mostly a comedy relief character. I definitely loved what they did with him so far. He definitely had a presence of being sharp as well and being smart in situations and utilizing his wit. But there's a couple of zany hijinks that he gets into, and you see this very early in the film with another character, and you start to say, man, what the fuck is going on here? At times I was like, well, man, this dude Jimmy Olsen, this man is just a grade A stud in this movie to certain characters, but it's also, once again, they highlighted his exuberant nature as well, his compassion, his caring virtues as well, and how he bounces off Lois and Clark was very interesting. Next up is the Justice Gang, and we've seen them portrayed quite a bit in the trailers. This is the gang mostly consisting of, I think Maxwell Lord is the one who employed them to do some work throughout the city, whether it's going around and stopping big threats alongside Superman. That's what they do. Is mostly Guy Gardner, one of the Lanterns, who is played by Nathan Fillion, and I think he was in the Uncharted short that they pitched, right, which was perfect, and then they decided to get Tom Holland. Then there was Hawkgirl, played by Isabella Merced. She was recently in The Last of Us Part 2 Season 2. And then there's Mr. Terrific. I forget his name. Obviously, it's hard to say his last name. It really is. I just know his first name is Ed. Hello, Ed. So out of the Justice Gang, I'm gonna start with Mr. Terrific first. He is probably the better portrayed member of the Justice Gang, because it seems like he gets all the best beats throughout the film. Like, everything that is awesome about Mr. Terrific is portrayed here beautifully, and he eats up the screen. He chews the screen each time you see him. To summarize and make a conclusion here on Mr. Terrific, he is just the prime definition of cool. You want to be him, you want to hit people in the head with teeth spears, you want to do all of that stuff. He's just a very embodied cool character that's brought to life in this movie, and he has the best coverage of the Justice Gang members. Guy Gardner is, well, he's the asshole that's being presented here. That's part of the Lantern Corps, now part of this Justice Gang. I personally think that he was fine for what it is. Nathan Fillion's always a riot to see on screen, and how he presents his sort of snarky personality here it clicked on point, really. Although he gets less screen time compared to Mr. Terrific. You see him a little bit less. You don't have a lot of big backstory about him or what's going on with Lantern Corps. And at one point he serves as a little bit of conflict in the movie, although it doesn't really go into a big situation, which I'll talk about later. It's fine for what it is. It's fine for what he presents in the film, which is, you know, the cocky asshole who wants to come in and take all of the credit when the Justice Gang is like bodying things across the stratosphere of Metropolis, and he feels like he doesn't get enough love and appreciation. And maybe you could resonate with that just a little bit, and you could also find the shit that he says hilarious, that he wants his recognition, his glory, his sense of fame. You can understand him to a large degree. Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl, she was cool. Once again, I'm going to be saying this a lot with the characters. The characters were cool because they mostly were in this movie. The characterization was mostly that damn good, and she also brought her thunder to the table. But I can also agree with the citations and criticisms that she's also not presented way too much in this film. I can understand that. It's like, hey, you want to see more of Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl, maybe she could have some interpersonal setup with certain characters. Not saying this happened in the movie, but we do have our casted Jon Stewart in the film and shit like that. And I know you probably want to see more interconnected works, but I'm going to say that you just don't see her a lot to really put two and two together. And I think that is mostly fine because you're watching a Superman movie. At the end of the day, while we have Mr. Terrific, who is cool, the main focus should be centered around what Superman does and what he's doing and his conflict with Lex Luthor. I know there was some ire, or there were some people saying that I don't know how this movie is going to necessarily work with the fact that there's so many characters. You have the Justice Gang, you have Superman, you have Lois Lane, you have Jimmy Olsen, you have other characters that I haven't talked about yet. You have Metamorpho. How is all this stuff going to work and coalesce with each other and just make the movie what it is? It's going to be too overstuffed. And personally speaking, I don't think it was too overstuffed at all. You will see these characters do things on screen. You will see the Justice Gang do what they do, fucking fight monsters and shit along with Superman. You're gonna see that in this film, but at the heart of the story is what's going on with Superman and his life and how he is adapting to his situation and what is his beliefs and how they conflict with everything else going on with the main central plot, which is what the movie should be. If you're worried about there's too many characters, it's way too overstuffed, James Gunn handles it well. All right, so if you're worried there, I think you can put the pitchfork down. You don't have anything to worry about. I didn't feel that all of the characters brought down the Superman momentum at all, although I do feel like they were here, obviously speaking, they were here to set up an established universe, because the pacing, well, let's get into that a little bit. The pacing is very rapid and quick. If you're expecting an origin story for this film, you're not going to get it whatsoever, because the movie hits the ground running. There is no time to breathe. You're thrown right into it. Superman is Superman. There is no detailed backstory in terms of how they set things up. They skip the origin, and that's not a big spoiler at all. It's not even a spoiler. It's just most movies have been doing that, where you've seen the origin of Batman time in and time out. You know his parents get shot. That's why they skipped it in the Batman Part 1. And it's the same circumstance here, where the metahumans and everything are already set up right before you. And some people might hate that, because they may say, hey, Superman's backstory was very important with his parents. I want to learn more about what his parents do and the planet of Krypton and everything like that, and how they sent him off as a baby. But personally speaking, Spider-Man did this as well. Spider-Man did this too in the MCU, where they skipped the whole Ben Parker death, and they just immediately moved into, yes, Spider-Man is a vigilante now that is running around trying to save the innocent, but these events still happen. And in a way, the movie kind of conveys that too. And I don't have a big issue with that either. I don't find that as a negative. I feel like they can further establish lore and flashbacks and things of that nature later on in future movies within the timeline, but here it didn't bother me. I will say that the only part, maybe I was partially bothered by one thing, but I can't talk about that because that's the spoiler section. I will talk about the action and the CGI at this part. Thought it was good. I didn't have a problem with the action or the CGI. It's very frenetic, fast-paced. I'm going to make a comparison to anime because that's the best thing I could do in this situation. If you're going in wanting big style kaiju fights and big fights with like enemies with superpowers, and it's just you're going back and forth, sort of like the Saiyans in DBZ when they fight, you're gonna get that in spades in this movie, especially during the second and third acts. This movie is jam-packed with action, 100%. You're gonna see people get blown through the city. You're gonna see Superman try to save people. You get all of that in spades with the action. Those defining character moments just stand out a lot more than they did, personally speaking, in Man of Steel. That's how I felt. So you'll see Superman trying to save a squirrel, or you see Superman trying to save a cat, or you see Superman trying to save a person, and that once again lends to the big boy blue heroism that you get in this movie, with the thematics not only interspersed into the story and what the character is going through in his head, but also the action set pieces as well, lends to that characterization, which I believe was really well done. There's just a few tiny pieces of interspersed CGI that's a little bit weird in small spots. Nothing that really took me out of the experience. I do believe that the CGI gradually got better and better as the movie went on. And as I heard, James Gunn actually edited this movie before the final cut. There was like 20 minutes cut out. We don't know what was cut at that moment or what scenes were took out or taken out, but we do know that the movie was filed down just a little bit. I think it was beneficiary in my opinion, because from what I've seen, the scenes themselves get better and better and better as it goes on. In the beginning, you see maybe a little bit of a face that might be weird while Superman is flying, but other than that, it got really strong, especially during one of the big battles in the second act. You're gonna be like, holy shit, that's incredible. How'd they do all that? Especially in the second act and the third act. You're gonna love the fights there. Guaranteed, no holds barred, action heavy, it's all good. Did the jokes land for me? And mostly this is gonna end the non-spoiler section. I've heard this talked about before, where people don't like the James Gunn humor, right? As I click my phone, people don't like the James Gunn humor. It's gonna be another Guardians of the Galaxy where the humor is all over the place and they just traipse around every serious situation and there's not enough dark elements. I'm just going to say, if you are one of those types of people who believe that, hey, Superman has to be super grimdark, that's the only way I can enjoy it myself personally, is if Superman has like 5 million dark moments. You're not going to like this movie. This is all about the light-hearted side of Superman and him saving the day. And the humor itself, in my personal opinion, I thought it landed well. Every joke was funny. Like, mostly speaking, every joke was funny. I feel like maybe only one joke that they did undercut a certain scene, but other than that, most of them, I would say, like, for me personally, 90% of them landed and made sense, and I was like, oh, that's pretty funny, or that's pretty sharp, or that's pretty witty. I'm glad they put that there. It's only one joke, which I'm going to talk about in spoilers, that kind of felt like, oh god, that was undercut, but it was funny. But it was an undercut moment for a particular character that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But I just thought, for that person, I'm trying not to give a gender, they definitely undercut that with a joke, and I was just thinking to myself, oh my god, man, like, why? It's hilarious, but why would they do that? Okay, so I was just thinking that the whole time. Superman is great though. This is a great movie. I would personally give it a 9 out of 10 for my enjoyment that I had. It definitely flew sky high in the movie theaters for me in IMAX. I was sitting there, I was enjoying that shit too, but I realized, man, I gotta take a piss because it's like 2 post credits, so I was running real quick to the bathroom trying not to miss any of them for the later sections, and I'm glad I didn't, because once again, banger film, first entry in the DC, well, technically, is it technically the second, because it would be Creature Commandos first. That's canon, and then you move on into this film, but I guess for live action movies, yes, it's the first DCU film, and I thought they struck gold here. The movie was what it needed to be. It set up this basic plot, it basically put together all the pieces, and the enhanced characterization is what will shine through for you personally. If you're a big fan of Superman and him just, once again, I'm gonna say it once again, just embodying truth, justice, and the American way, or truth, justice, and a better tomorrow, whichever phrasing you personally prefer. I think they embody that in spades for this film. Look up for it, go see it in the movie theaters, take your family with you, mostly, you know, take your kids with you as well. They're going to thoroughly enjoy Superman. I think this is definitely going to appeal to the little ones as well, and have a lot of fun with it. It's a fun film, which is why I rate it so high. I see people kind of compare it to Spider-Man, Raimi Spider-Man, and how that began. And yeah, I could kind of see that, where Raimi Spider-Man, for example, the first one, that was a basic plot of setting up Spider-Man, setting up the origin, setting up the character, and then leading to his nemesis, which was Green Goblin. But the characterization in between was so damn good that people enjoyed it. I can see the same sort of sentiment coming from this film as well. A perfect example to what this movie is, and hopefully you guys enjoy it just as much as I did. It is time for the spoilers section. I have a couple of things to say to get off my chest about this film. Got a couple of notes here. And there's a certain person I didn't talk about, which is Lex Luthor. So after the countdown of the non-spoiler section, once that's done, I'm gonna move straight to spoilers. The countdown's gonna stop at 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, non-spoiler section is over. Nicholas Holtz as Lex Luthor. This man is the prime #1 hater. All right, this man is a bigger hater than LTG losing in a Street Fighter match online. This guy is a fucking hater, dude. Like, all right, one of the things that I kind of felt a little bit weird about, and maybe it would knock maybe a slight half point or maybe a small little fraction of the score, with Lex Luthor, his origin is not established for how he hates Superman. Well, I don't necessarily have a problem with them setting up the metahumans already and having quick pacing. It does suffer a bit from that with the pacing issues, and you do lose out on the Lex origin. You don't get why he hates Superman so much. He's sitting in his fucking chair going, Superman, hey Superman, I'm gonna put my foot up his ass. Like, you don't get the full picture as to why he hates him or that introduction, because they skipped over those years already. But you do understand his motivation still, and what he's willing to do to destroy Superman's life, whether it's causing the mass genocide of people during this war conflict and trying to find a loophole, an excuse for people to blame Superman in the process, whether it's brainwashing monkeys so they could talk on their own Twitter universe or social media to post Superman negative criteria and call him super shit. Lex is just willing to do it all in this movie, whether it's having this egomaniacal speech and beating Superman into the ground with fucking AI commands issued out through Ultraman and saying 1A, 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 just pounding his face into dust at this rate. He's like super petty in this movie. He has all his ex-girlfriends trapped in the little pocket dimension that they go to, all of them entrapped for certain pieces of things and criterias and things that he did not like. They're all trapped in there. This motherfucker is evil as fuck. Chrome Dome, Ball Infinium. He takes one of Superman's friends and blows his brains out. He plays Russian roulette. He cocks a bullet. He tests the first one, it doesn't go through, and then the second one, it goes through, and he shoots Superman's friend in the head, Malik, that was on the streets. He kills him in order to intimidate Superman, and then he tells him, hey, maybe I'll get to that reporter next, Mr. Clark Kent. But we know that Clark Kent is actually in there with the kryptonite with Metamorpho in the jail cell, so it's kind of funny in that regards. But still, this dude is definitely one of the more devious people in this entire film, and it's just pure straight up hater energy, unhinged, and I love it, man. He's fierce as fuck. And it's funny because he originally auditioned to be Superman and he didn't get that part, and now he's just this crazy unhinged villain. But I really liked it. There's gonna be people that don't But I did personally. I felt like he was great for what it was. You needed that crazy, unhinged psycho that will do whatever the fuck it takes to bring down Boy Blue and bring him to a moment of this is his lowest point at this rate. How is he going to proceed? How is he going to take all the criticism and turn into the actual hero that he was always meant to be? And that is embodied in the film really well. It's like Lex Luthor was doing it all. He was about to destroy the entire city of Metropolis. Like, let them die. If you praise Superman, let them die. Let these people die. They don't matter. That's where his mind state was. And it's perfectly unhinged. Not goofy unhinged like Jesse Eisenberg with the whole thing with BVS, right? It gets goofy at times, but I think it works really well for what it is, because you get a sense of Lex's superiority complex and how he is like brains over brawn, and I thought that was portrayed really well than just having a characterization of Lex that didn't really work out too well for me as it did in BVS, where it felt more like he was the Joker than Lex Luthor. Although admittedly, you will get a sense that Nicholas Holt's character in this film feels very whiny due to his sheer obsession with Superman, which is kind of called out in the movie, where Superman says, yo, your obsession with me is a little bit too weird. Maybe you want to get that checked out or something. I like how they point that out directly, how Lex is willing to do anything. He doesn't care what it costs him as long as he frames Superman perfectly and shows his true malice and hate towards him. Yes, that is something that embodies Lex Luthor, and Holt is like a young Lex Luthor still. I can't wait till we get to that point where this guy is like the mayor of the city or whatever, or he has so much clout that Lex Luthor is fucking, you know, running for a candidate position later on, as he does in one of the DC comics. I know he does eventually either run for president or mayor, and I know he gets it. And that's going to be very interesting to see what Lex does with like more power later on in the timeline. While it wasn't alluded to in this story and they're still setting things up, and he goes to the prison, the security guard's like, take your bald ass in Bellevue or something like that. It's still going to lead up to interesting possibilities as we see Lex mature and get even smarter and show even more hate. The basic plot of this movie is a bit hilarious. I did say that it was basic in the sense of, so what happens in the film, and it's interesting due to the characterization and everything around it, of course. Otherwise, if it wasn't for that, the movie probably would have dropped lower on the spectrum and it would have shown. But the reason it's so high is because they portrayed that aspect that I talked about earlier. Well, Superman gets framed, essentially, well, kind of, sort of, in a way. It's like a true framing, but they put it all on social media. They plaster it all on social media that originally his parents wanted him to come and destroy Earth and conquer it. And it's like the perception of Superman before that point is very good. He believes that his parents sent him here to save everyone and protect everyone, and there's this like little message inside of the Fortress of Solitude where they're talking about it, and Superman says, oh, this last message from my parents is something that soothes me. But the message is like kind of cut off, and it is a bit of an obvious plot point that there was more to it when they told us that there's half of the message destroyed and cut off and we can't really decode it. We don't know why. And then when they finally find the pieces, and they do that with the engineer, they find out that yes, Superman was here to enslave and take over, and that is found by Lex, and that is posted on social media. Therefore, there is a social media messaging in this film, whether it comes to slandering someone's character or taking true facts to someone's character and trying to destroy the reputation they already had and built up as a good person to turn them into a bad individual. There will be people that will say this is very, very lazy storytelling and lazy writing, but the movie is definitely relevant in 2025 for how it's framed. I would imagine at this point, if there was superheroes going around doing stupid shit, and we've seen this in The Boys, if there was superheroes doing this and that, people would take notice and people would post about it. And later on, I if the payoff wasn't that great, I would agree with those people, but I think the payoff was good in showing that yes, even though you were destined to come here and destroy Earth and enslave us all, that's not you, or that's not what your personality is at this point, Superman. You want to stick to being good, and even with this revelation, you stick to it, and it shows that despite your origins and what you're up against and everything that is posted about you, you can still stay true to your personality and not your original purpose, which is basically to enslave humanity. And there's a speech about that at the end of the movie when Superman is talking to Lex and saying how he is human, how everyone matters, and I thought that was really well done. But what brought a tear to me, and they're rarely in this movie, Ma and Pa Kent, but the scene with him and Pa on the porch was so pivotal, where he talked about how, you know, I care about you. It's sort of paraphrasing this here. It's like, you know, no matter what they say about you, you're just like us, you're just like me, and that's why I like love you so much. And I thought that was very well done with that scene. So while Ma and Pa Kent are not really in the movie that much, the scene with him in the porch and him talking to Clark Kent was so powerful, man. I really enjoyed that. That actually made me feel emotional for what it was, and it goes back to what I said. I think in a Destroy recording, I destroyed that recording because it didn't work out too well. But I said in a Destroy recording that while they didn't show Ma and Pa Kent and Clark Kent that much, you don't get that a lot. The humane aspects and the payoff of the scenes that they did implement with showing that worked out well. The argument with Lois and Clark, where Superman believes he's doing the best thing that he can to save the world, stopping a war, but you have Lois and he coaxed her into doing a real journalistic interview, and she's saying, well, there's treaties, you can't go in there and beat up tanks and punch tanks up and threaten the president saying that you're gonna hang him over an ocean or something like that. There's laws in place and doing things by the book and getting evidence to that equation versus like brute strength. And it created this ping pong of a human argument. It's like, oh, now my girlfriend's saying I'm in the wrong, what do I do? And then she's doubting herself in the relationship, and it goes back and forth. And I thought that was a really well played scene of drama with Lois and Clark. Like, the stuff that they did do for humane purposes, it is well done. Like, it hit to a level that I didn't expect them to go into, but they did. It could have just been another cheap action scene or whatever, but the war of the words was effective for the times that they showed them. I just think that people kind of want more of those moments to intersperse themselves into the film, which I understand. And whatever they wanted or the things that they craved, it was still effective here in its own right. I don't think that it was bad at all. Or the character moments that they had between Lois, between Pa Kent, between Ma Kent, I thought it all fit, even though some of these people, Ma and Pa Kent and the Clark Kent persona itself was limited. Crypto, did I talk about Crypto? He's fun. All I can say about him is he's a fun dog. He acts like a dog. He smacks Superman all over the place sometimes when he's like injured, but he's a dog, he doesn't know right from wrong, and eventually he does become a worthy ally later on in the film, and they have these cutesy moments as they would with dogs, and how he you know, sort of breaks through a chew toy place. And then there's a joke in there, it was like, oh, I brought Crypto with me because I didn't want him to kill the cows at my home farm. It's funny stuff. Let's see, there was some cameos in here. The first one that was funny as shit was seeing Peacemaker on TV just saying like Superman's a piece of shit. Superman's garbage. He just straight up doing his Peacemaker routine played by John Cena. And the second cameo was seeing Kara at the end, portrayed by Millie Alcock. Alcock. I'm sorry for my juvenile humor. But Millie Alcock was playing Kara, and she comes in, and you can tell, you know, she has her teenager phase going on. She calls Superman a bitch. She's like, thanks for nothing, bitch, or something to that effect. It's funny. She's going to be a great Supergirl. I thoroughly believe it, because she has that brash, effective personality, and I want to see that challenged with actual trauma and the stuff she went through on Krypton itself. I can't wait for that. Let's see, what else did we cover? What do we think about the other villains like Ultraman and Engineer? Honestly, I think this was a little bit disappointing with the other villains, because there's 3 of them. Ultraman basically is a clone Superman, but you get lore with him. You get the thing where it's he's obviously played by David Cornswet. He has the long black hair, he has the black suit or whatever, and it shows that Lex has been taking DNA. And as a comic fan, you know what this is going to lead to when Lex takes his own DNA and he takes Superman's DNA and he makes Superboy. So that's the one part that I liked about Ultraman, is that they're sowing the seeds for the future. And the fight was cool at the end with him, but otherwise, you know, he's just there to be a shocking reveal of obviously Ultraman is Superman. So my phone goes off. Superman's clone. And the Engineer was kind of cool, seeing her power set turning into swirly blade arms and fucking up the Superman robots in the Fortress of Solitude. That whole scene was like fucking cool. But in terms of character traits, she's definitely just A1 villain. You don't get way too much of her, but you do get her talking and conversing and having her own personality versus Ultraman. But there could have been a little bit more to those characters, but I'm glad they did sow the seeds and make characterization for what they were. But the real villains is obviously Lex Luthor. He's the main villain of this movie, and like I said, a lot of people probably might not like him due to him being whiny, but I think it worked for me personally for what they were going for. So that's just an A1 for me personally. Let's see, what else? There's only talking about, let me see, the ending and talking about the pacing, which I didn't like. I'll talk about the pacing. They have moments where you can tell James Gunn was on the editing room floor, the cutting room floor, and there was those 20 minutes that were cut, because the beginning is basically him losing to Ultraman and the Engineer, and we don't even see how that first battle resolves itself outside of just Superman getting knocked into the dirt. Then they heal him, and then he comes back, and then it's just like, oh, well, Ultraman got away, that was it. And it's a little bit disappointing. It feels like it was more to the fight. But maybe they didn't want to drag out the fact that, oh, you're gonna have Superman lose again here like he lost in the beginning, so it's no point, let's just move on to him forgetting about it and have a short little time skip to him being Clark and seeing this war, this Ultraman situation progress. But it does feel like they jump a little bit forward at times with the pacing. It's very lightning fast, and I would argue that despite knocking somewhat of a point off of this for certain scenes where they just cut and they go to something else completely. The scenes themselves were still entertaining, and not only that, I would say James Gunn is mostly known for quick pacing in his films. This is a trait that we've talked about with James Gunn since the Dawn of the Dead remake that he wrote for. That movie felt very breakneck fast. I know obviously editor Zack Snyder, they put that all together, but the way that script was handled, it felt very quick in sections. And the same applies to his directorial work with the Guardians trilogy and how fast that went. And I would even say Suicide Squad also has some quick pacing at times, but they do take time to breathe and focus on the character moments. And this is probably the James Gunn film that goes the quickest in certain sections, but the movie itself is far entertaining, and the only thing it really knocks a point off, in my personal opinion, for the fast pacing is you don't get the Lex origin as to why he hates this guy's guts like so goddamn much. But I don't mind the metahumans being around, like I said earlier. The ending is sweet. It's a sweet ending because it instills that Superman knows what his true purpose is at this rate. And I remember it's sort of a cycle back to the beginning of the movie when they were healing Superman. They showed the message of Superman's Kryptonian parents and how they were saying things in Kryptonian language where he didn't really understand it, but it's like, oh, it soothes me. He had no idea. They were like, it's time for you to come and take over Earth, motherfucker. Like, he had no idea they were saying that, and that was decoded and put on social media. And then you have Superman's like new memories, the people he cares for right now, and finding out that reveal of his original parents, and him going through those emotional moments at the farm with Pa Kent, and it ultimately culminates into Superman just sitting there getting healed. And then you put on the tape of Pa Kent and the memories with him and Ma Kent and them raising him, and I thought that was cute. That was a cute little addition of him saying, yes, I finally have accepted who my real parents are, who the real people are, that is tried and true, and they will always have my back no matter what, and they won't slander me, and they've always been here for me, and they've always loved me. And I think that was a really cute message that was put there to end the film. So I thought it was great. The post credits are essentially it is what it is. You have Superman sitting on a planet and Krypto's playing with him. It's whatever. And then you sort of have the same one with the last one where, well, as much as I've seen, it was Mr. Terrific and Superman, and Mr. Terrific was like fixing up a building that was destroyed, and Superman was like, oh, this is not perfect, or alluding to something like that. And then he goes back to the no cuss club where he says darn and not damn, and it's just a whole cute thing there. That's really, like, you know, cool character traits. Obviously sticking true to that encouragement of Superman, that positivity that he can't fucking swear. Like, I can swear though, I can swear like a motherfucker. Overall, good film, fun film, enjoyable. This is a great start to a new universe. I cannot wait to see what they do next with Supergirl. They tease her, obviously, and from the brief snippet of her character coming in, waltzing in, and being who she is, I can't wait to see her story, how they're going to introduce Batman. More interconnectivity is definitely something that needs to be on the menu, that hopefully leads up to a new Justice League film, and we see how that's done with either multiple actors, an ensemble, and them having their Avengers moment. I want to see that happen for the new DC universe and these new established characters and what they do after Gods and Monsters is finished. But that's my Superman review. I'm also gonna go see Fantastic Four. It's been super fantastic for a lot of comic book cinema recently. I also like Thunderbolts as well, and I want this momentum to be kept up for sure. So I'll see you guys next time. You enjoy yourselves, you stay classy, and I'll see you people next time. Later.